And good afternoon, everyone. It's Kelly Dahlbach, Executive Business Coach and Coach for individuals interested and connected through the Well-Being Foundation in Health and Wellness. I'm joined today with a very special guest, a peer and colleague, Wendy Holtmark, and we are going to cover the topic today, confidence. But broadening back just a little bit, Wendy and I have connected on really a level of self transformation and collaboration. And what's really come out of that is recognizing, looking back and recognizing the skills that were necessary to undergo some of these changes in our lives and identifying ways that we can not only share the story, but also aid in asking and supporting others that may be going through a transformation themselves. So I want to welcome Wendy to our discussion.
Thanks so much, Kelly. It's a delight to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you. And so, Wendy is a leadership coach that is helping individuals really realign in their career development. And she specializes in helping individuals get grounded, align with their true north, and get going. So, I'm excited to dig into this discussion with you today, Wendy, around confidence, but wanted to offer you the opportunity to introduce yourself in any capacity that's important to our audience today.
Thanks, Kelly. That was a great introduction. So I'm a leadership coach. I'm a certified professional coach and affiliated with the ICF. And I love in particular working with executive women who are maybe going through um, a transition at work, maybe experiencing some pain there. And looking to move forward and get their career from a position of stuck or stalled or even maybe feeling sabotaged to just that freedom and that path forward that they're looking for. So that's a bit about me and what I love to do. And confidence is just career foundations is such a great way to frame confidence because it absolutely is foundational. And I also think that confidence is something that um, it's like an onion with a lot of layers. We tend to think about confidence from the perspective of something that we gain through experience. But as you point out, when the world is changing and in flux around us, or we're experiencing a lot of change in our jobs or careers, we can't always lean into experience for confidence. Sometimes we have to find that confidence deep within us and build that muscle rather than relying on experience to teach us that we are capable, that we have it in us to move forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, okay, you think about confidence, you're like, what have I practiced? What am I, what comes to mind is like mastery, and like it's 10,000 hours and you master something and you become an expert. And that will innately lead to confidence. But when we're talking about confidence in the midst of change, I think it's a different view, and it's really important to recognize how the heck we can gain confidence when there's like nothing to master. There's nothing to really hold on to. And our goal is actually transitioning and transforming. So I'd love to get your thoughts, just how we can build confidence when we're trying to transition or change everything that we're comfortable knowing, right? There's not that like grasping. I'm
Yeah.
a I'm a coach, I'm a dietitian, I'm a mom. Like there's not like that like grasping factor. So
Yeah. Yeah. That is the money question right there because confidence actually comes from the root of the word confidence is Latin and it means with trust. And so when we expect confidence to be built through experience, in some ways, it's almost like the opposite of what true confidence really is, which is an innate sense of trust in yourself. So, so when in that flux type of situation, that's where my kind of my three steps comes into play with building confidence, because I think what's really important to start is to just kind of get your bearings. Although you may have not encountered this exact situation before, you have probably had life experiences that can guide you and inform you. And if you're in a situation, for example, where your confidence has been kind of taken down a notch or two because of circumstances that you're presently in, you may start to get into a habit of telling yourself or forgetting your skills, forgetting what your gifts are. And so just kind of getting your bearings again with what your gifts are, what your strengths are. And also, are you maybe leaning into a version of the story that you're a part of that has some holes in it? Are there things that maybe aren't entirely true, or maybe you're kind of putting on blinders to some parts of the story? So just really getting grounded is like that first step. And then I like to focus on that true north. So a lot of times, like as you said, Kelly, we are grasping. We really want to grasp onto something that's familiar, or just get out of this discomfort as soon as possible.
Yes. On that
And
note, there's actually a book. I have to ask if you've read it, or the audience if they've read it. There's a book called The Comfort Crisis that is on
ah
my on my list for next week.
ah
And even the title, I, just self-reflected. And I've, done a lot out of my comfort zone in the past couple of years, but I've also done a lot more recently that I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable in many of my day-to-day activities, and it honestly, it feels nice. And so I had to go through a little self exploration, and just to kind of share, I had to really explore and identify a disaligning belief that I had, and who knows where it came, but it was like something in my mind was telling me that um, discomfort was unhealthy. And I don't know where or how it came, but it was like a red flag. And to me, my reality was that it was unhealthy. I don't know if it's because it like made my heart race or what, but working through that, there's a significant difference between discomfort and aligning it and what's healthy and what's not. So sorry for that tangent, but I'm
mhm,
excited to read that book.
yeah.
And I just want to clarify the feelings around discomfort and how we can, kind of work through some of those emotions as
Mhm.
you're aligning with your true north. Because some people could be like, holy cannoli, I am not doing what my beliefs are. I'm not doing my skills. I'm not leaning into my gifts as you shared.
Mhm.
Um, you know, this makes me uncomfortable. So how do
Yeah.
you navigate before you get into the alignment, the emotional journey part of it?
Yeah. Well, I would also add that another version of that, or the other side of that might be, quick, let me jump into something that is similar to this, like that I am more that's
Yeah.
comfortable,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
let me do the next logical thing, because everybody knows that when you're a director, the next thing to be is a VP, or
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. So yeah, slowing down at this stage is so important, and taking that pause before jumping into action to soothe yourself.
Mm.
And I love what you say about comfort and discomfort, Kelly, because I think that um, we might misread ourselves, that if we are in discomfort, that we are not confident, and that can maybe kind of set us into even more of a swirl. But discomfort and confidence are not like the are not like
Parallel, they're
opposite
not the
sides.
same.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
opposite sides of
yeah,
a coin. Like they're not
got it.
opposites. You can be uncomfortable and confident at the same time. Um, but I think what I focus on with that true north is it's really about getting a little bit more clear on your values, your purpose, your gifts, and let that guide you directionally, more so than, a lot of times when people have career questions, they think the question is, what am I doing next? And that is the question, of course, but what you do next is less important than knowing where you're headed, and that each step you take is helping you get there somehow. Yeah, I think I read something. It was Simon Sinek who kind of pointed this out, that by the time, forget a 5-year plan, because the world is going to be totally different in 6 months. So
Yeah,
what your 5-year plan is almost, inconsequential. It's that true north that you really want to get clear on. So yeah, doing some work around your values. It never ceases to surprise me how many really talented people have no idea what their talents are. And I've had that experience myself where, I just kind of drew a blank when thinking about, like, what are my gifts? Yeah, I know everybody has them, right? Yeah, I get it, but I don't know what mine are. Um, but so just for that, I love to encourage people just to, you know, ask their friends or family, what they think are your gifts or your talents, because you'd be surprised what comes up on repeat.
hmm,
I did that exercise a few years ago for, part of my personal development. And I think two out of the 3 or 4 people I asked, the first word they said was witty. And I was like, witty,
witty, witty,
witty.
witty. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, really? Like, I expected something like around my sense of humor, but I didn't expect 2 people to use that exact word.
Yeah.
And so, it really can be eye-opening. And now I feel pressured to be witty, and I'm not gonna try.
Well, you're confident that you are, so it's natural.
Yeah. But the point is, like, it can be really informative, getting that reflection back from the people who love you, to really shine a light on what your gifts are.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really resonated when you said between identifying and aligning with your gifts, right? You have to identify, and then there's a gap. And that's where the work lies, right here is the gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's how do you do that? Well, you soothe yourself, I heard you say. And that's a part that I have learned through experience, resisted and then accepted experience, that part is not meant to be rushed. It's really meant to be appreciated, because I think time and time again we are learning, as you had mentioned earlier, the circumstances we can't even imagine in most instances what it's going to be like, in 6 months, much less 5 years. So it changes our frame of reference to creating an intention and a goal that is unaffected by circumstance. And to me, that's where your real power lies, is that you can have a million pathways to get there, but you begin to create your goals and intentions off of these broad strokes of what your gifts are. And then it's, as you mentioned, kind of natural to align in that direction. And when things feel natural, for me, that's an adjective I guess I would use to describe where I lean in when things feel really natural. And um, they can, I'm trying to use words, they can be a little uncomfortable, but it feels like really part of who I am. And the discomfort lies mostly from the fact that I may have not been doing things that were really in alignment with who I was. So I think
Mhm.
it's interesting that we have discomfort because I was doing things that really weren't in alignment. So
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different kinds of discomfort, right? Like, I think when we were first talking about it, I was thinking of discomfort in the sense of, like, yikes, this is scary.
Mm.
There's some unknown here that I need to navigate, and I'd rather just get back to what I know I'm good at and what people have validated me for in the past, versus
Sure.
more of like that friction that occurs when we're not doing what is in alignment with our gifts or what we value most. So a little bit of a different scenario. So I think it is important to kind of tune into what sort of discomfort you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And I do work a lot with clients who are questioning the culture that they're in. Maybe they, are still relatively new to a company and they're not sure that they've made the right choice from a culture perspective, or maybe they're observing the culture of their company around them changing. And so, yeah, there can be some real friction there. And I think that in stepping back to really assess what your gifts are, the if I, there may be somebody out there thinking, well, I can't find my next job as like chief witty officer, Wendy. Like it's nice to be witty, but like what? So what? But I think that's where culture really does come into play, and you can, I think when I was in my HR career, I did lean into my humor a bit to kind of break down barriers and help people kind of deal with complex and difficult emotions and situations, and to call attention to the irony of some situations or things that as a management team we really needed to look at. So um, knowing that you have a gift that doesn't translate to a specific job title can still be
Yeah.
incredibly useful.
Yeah, and just being comfortable and confident with that is part of who you are. And again, resonating with the feelings that come along with it. It may be uncomfortable to lean into it because maybe you were hiding that part of yourself.
Yeah.
But that's a great point. So moving then into get going, and
Mhm.
some of these gaps with the clients that I've worked with are tremendously large. So, for
Yeah.
instance, working with someone who has an executive background in finance turned um, turned coach and Reiki healer. I mean, that's quite the gap.
Yeah.
And it's important to identify pathways to make our way there. But
Mhm.
thinking of that size of a gap, it can be really overwhelming. And honestly, it's what keeps most people from doing it.
Yeah.
And so, what is your secret sauce or your methodology that helps individuals gain confidence that they can get there through these small steps that sometimes feel like, well, that's really not work. Like, that's just, that doesn't seem like enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing is to, um, again, not to rush to this step. If there's, and also not to, delay it just because it's, daunting somehow. So finding that right moment to step into action is a little bit of a sweet spot to be found, but it's, part of the work I love doing is to help people get there. Um, but I think that, the power of small steps really can't be overstated. That
Right.
um, you know, the very next thing is often just enough. You don't need to know what the 100 things are that you need to do, or even five, but just what is the first thing that would feel really good to do now. And so I tend to focus on those smaller steps. That said, sometimes you just need to kind of mix that up with the occasional big leap. So um, you know, there are times when and you can kind of tell it's time to get to a big leap stage. I love Playing Big by Tara Moore, and she talks about this a bit, where um, you know if you want to become a Reiki expert, you can research it. You can take an online course. You can talk to some people, but at some point you need to express to the world that this is what you want to do. You need to kind of put a stake in the ground. And so there are these moments where you do need to step beyond the small step, and into something that simply just stakes a claim. This is what I'm after. Um, and engages other people. Like, you need to engage other people in that passion so that you can, um, accelerate it and make it more real. But I think the very first thing is really just those small steps that feel good, that you can kind of build upon day to day, week to week, to get you there.
Beautiful. And if the engaging others or even admitting it to anyone besides ourselves is too scary. Well, it's like not ready for it. Would
Mm,
you suggest just continuing to learn and read and explore, or what if there's like this like overarching like, oh, I don't want anybody to know what I'm really.
yeah. Well, I think just watch yourself if you're in learning mode, and because
Mm,
if you stay in learning mode for a very long time, you won't get there, and so at some point you do need
mm.
to make that little leap. But find somebody you really trust to share that with
Oh, I
first.
love that.
Maybe it's a close friend, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a parent. But yeah, you don't have to go off and tell your boss, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not living my purpose anymore here. I think I'd like to be a Reiki therapist." You don't have to go there like 0 to 60 in one day. Just, find a friend and say it out loud, and see how it feels to say it out loud, because that can be a really liberating and exhilarating thing. And also, it's maybe not even enough just to say, fine, when I say someone you trust, I mean someone you can, someone who, you can kind of trust them not to try to keep you small. Sometimes we
Yeah.
all have friends that we've had forever, family members. I think Julie Sincero once said that, like, we expect our partners to be the most supportive of these sorts of changes, but actually they have the most to lose if you make a big change, and so you may find yourself
Mhm.
unpleasantly surprised at the lack of support you get from someone. So you need to you'll just kind of start planting seeds with the people that you think you can trust to support you. Not necessarily like paint a rosier picture than needs to be painted, but who will really support you,
Yeah.
and stick with them.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned through my own transition. Was I learned the people I loved who would kind of poke holes in an idea before it really had a chance to blossom, and to stay, just not talk to those people about those ideas until they were, had chance to become more of a seedling.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're people, and we love them. We love these people, but they may just not be the right people to bring into our transformation discussion at early stages.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's like releasing judgment on who those people may be.
Hmm.
What came up as you were sharing that, I'm like, well, what I can share without any judgment or any concern is things with my daughter. I mean, she's 10. And, she doesn't have this skewed or expected views of the world that a lot of the adults have. And so we have a deal that when mommy has a crazy idea and just wants to share it or something, I go to her. And like you said, there's something about just physically, energetically releasing that into the world, no matter how big or how small, that helps in the teeny tiny steps towards building that confidence.
Mm,
So yeah, and one of the things, obviously, why confidence in all of this, as we've kind of moved through the three components of um, how to develop your skills and career development if you are actually looking for not the same thing somewhere else, getting grounded and reorienting with your strengths and your gifts, finding your true north and practicing the witty for Wendy, and the authenticity, And then, the baby steps, it could be like me, telling your daughter you have a crazy idea, whatever that is. But confidence is absolutely the number one thing, or lack thereof,
Mm.
that keeps people where they are or moves into change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always say, if you want, a different story, you have to write a different script.
Yeah.
And, what's keeping anyone from doing that is a lack of self-confidence. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful to have shared this opportunity to share with you. You have a lot of experience in developing self-confidence, both personally and obviously with your clients going through transformation.
Mhm.
But it was encouraging to hear, quite honestly, that these are very doable things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important to keep it doable, but also to really do the work, as we say in in the biz, right? It's not always easy to take a complete and honest look at ourselves and how we're relating to our own stories. But it's so rewarding when we build that confidence and can use it, um, you know, as a foundation for our careers and our lives.
Yeah, yeah. And I love even that we can use and develop confidence in learning, because that is so many, again, think action, action, action. But
Mm,
to build a foundation of knowledge, to build confidence is huge. And that's something that I think is comfortably uncomfortable as humans in making a change. So that makes perfect sense. And like I said, an excellent place to start. So, Wendy, I know that you're continuing to build upon this topic of confidence amongst other topics in career foundations.
mhm.
If individuals want to learn more about your process to help them in career transitions, what do you have upcoming for them to learn?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I'm really excited. I'm launching a free webinar called New Beginnings, and it is for those who want to move forward when their career feels stalled, stuck, or sabotaged. That is going to be on Tuesday, January 31st at 11 a.m. Eastern, and I'll pop the registration link for that in the chat. And of course, you can always reach out to me on wendyholtmark.com if you'd like to get to know me a little bit better, sign up for my weekly content, and so on.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right, Wendy. Well, I know this is one of our three topics for career foundations. So I look forward to exploring and announcing the next in a Tuesday to come.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you so much,
everyone.
Kelly.
Have a wonderful week.